I am not just a king on a throne. I am the Black Panther.
Then show us you can be both.
I will.
Welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very intriguing video pertaining to the currently untitled Captain America and Black Panther game. So while we don't have a lot of footage to look at for this game, we have received quite a lot of interviews that have been conducted with two of the biggest developers working on this project. Which, in case you forgot or might not know exactly who they are, those two individuals are Amy Hennig and Mark Bernardin. And it would be for the best if you were to get accustomed with both of these names now. Considering that there's a brand new interview revolving around these individuals which does unveil a lot about the ins and outs about what their overall vision is for this game. So this latest article involving Amy and Mark discussing about this Captain America and Black Panther game was posted by the media site known as CNET, where they recently posted a link to this article on Twitter stating that gaming legend Amy Hennig and story consultant Mark Bernardin talk about their ambitious World War II set action-adventure and how it could revolutionize the gaming industry, which is easily the biggest takeaway that you should pay attention to within this article. Now, there is a lot of ground to cover within this article, and I'm not going to read the entirety of it within this video. So if you want to read the full article for yourself, I will leave a link to it in the description below. But for this video, I am going to highlight its most important parts, which overall gives us a lot of insight as to how exactly Amy is approaching this game from a gameplay perspective, and what the overall narrative vision is for the project in its entirety. Now, this article is actually a transcript of an interview that was conducted by one of CNET's writers of Sean Keane, where he did go on to interview both Amy and Mark simultaneously. And these are some of the most important elements that we can look at within this interview, where the first question that Sean asks is this game's reveal was fascinating. It was so circumspect. I was like, they don't have a title for this? And Amy responded by saying, yeah, who needs a title? We got a tagline. It's super early still, so it would be way too soon for a gameplay trailer, and as far as not having a title goes, it's a challenge. There's no Marvel name to point to say, we're making this. It's gotta land like a Marvel Comics name that doesn't exist yet. That's no small feat when you're talking about a company that's been around as long as Marvel has, and has used every word in the dictionary. Coming up with something that's simple and feels like it's been around forever, that's gonna take some time. So right off the bat, Amy is pretty much explaining why they still haven't even given this project a title yet, even though they felt bold enough to reveal a trailer for it. And while I'm sure the game will likely end up being titled something like Marvel's Captain America and Black Panther, it's still pretty cool to see how serious they're taking the creative process for this game, especially in regards to something as small as the game's title. And once again, knowing just how far Amy's talents stretch as a writer in regards to the Uncharted series, I definitely think that the amount of quality that we will have for this game is going to be through the roof. And speaking of Uncharted, everyone's current perception of this game is pretty much expecting an Uncharted formula single-player action-adventure style game within the realm of the Marvel Universe. But in the case of how exactly this experience is going to differ from the previous Uncharted games, this is where Amy actually ends up diving deeper into what exactly we can expect from this title's gameplay mechanics. And in my opinion, based on everything that she ends up saying here, it definitely sounds extremely ambitious. So Amy goes on to say is that the main difference with this Captain America and Black Panther game is that we want to invite more people into play. Games have gotten increasingly complex, somewhat intimidating. Even for longtime gamers, you've got to build yourself up. Saying things like, okay, let's play that game. Having something that is immediately inviting and intuitive, and with contextual controls that let you feel like you're immersed in embodying these heroes, that's the goal. So not only does it give you an immersive experience, but it also invites people that might otherwise be intimidated to pick up the controller. And in response, the interviewer says that sounds a bit revolutionary. And as Amy goes on to reply, I think so. This is part of the challenge of building a team. I've been doing this for over 3 decades, and the team has an average of 20 years of experience in this area. But to bring people on who are ready to discard some of the dogma of what we've done in the past, that's a fun place to be. We're doing super different stuff with the cameras, since this whole feeling of cinematic presentation is so important. It has to be as visually dynamic as cinema. The camera composition changes constantly, doing stuff you don't see in games, but keeping the player in second-to-second control. there's no roadmap. And to add a bit more context to explain exactly what Amy is trying to elaborate here, the interviewer states, "I was going to ask you to compare it to something else, but it doesn't sound like you can." And as Amy Hennig answers with a very interesting response, most of the DNA is from stuff that I made before, but we looked at all these other games that are doing interesting things with more contextual controls, like Quantic Dreams games, which include 2010's Heavy Rain and 2018's Detroit Become Human. But those are very different kinds of games. We're still making a traditional AAA action-adventure game, but in a way that should be more intuitive to players. Now, even though some of Quantic Dreams games might be a bit hit or miss in regards to the general public's perception of them, I am personally a major fan of both Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. And hearing Amy Hennig herself reference Quantic Dreams games is extremely interesting for me personally, and makes me even more curious to see exactly what the gameplay is going to be like for this experience once we get our hands on it. And for a bit more clarification on the matter, the interviewer asks Amy, so it's less of a mechanical experience? Where she responds, less of a tactical mechanical experience. With so many games, there's an admirable effort to try to replicate the core fantasy of being a hero. But so rarely do you get to do so because you're so tactically engaged and there's a lot to manage. We wanted to make something where you can pick up the controller and the game meets you where you are, interprets what your intentions are, and honors them. It shouldn't be so hard. Which is pretty much Amy's interesting way of saying that Skydance is going to make this Captain America and Black Panther game as accessible as possible. So whether or not you're a noob or a long-time hardcore gamer, the game should definitely be easy for you to get a hang of. The main image that I have surrounding this game right now is that it sounds like it's going to be a massive hybrid of a linear structured single-player action-adventure superhero game like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as a traditional AAA single-player action-adventure game like Uncharted, and also make the overall experience a lot more cinematic like what we saw with Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human. And blending all those types of games together into one cohesive experience easily sounds like a Game of the Year contender in my opinion. Now moving on from the gameplay elements of this interview, we do have a bit more of an interpretation as to what exactly we can expect in terms of how the narrative is going to be handled for the core story revolving around our four main playable characters, where Amy goes on to describe that there are key points in the story based on what's happening and what these characters are trying to accomplish in parallel or even working at odds. That raises the stakes, and we can cut back and forth between those characters, even really quickly cut back and forth, and be really creative like that. That really necessitates that this be a single player experience. It's not like you're choosing which character to play. It's not like you're playing co-op multiplayer. I kind of hate the term linear story because I always try to make games that feel widely linear and have lots of player agency, but the story has a beginning, middle, and end, with landmarks in between. So for example, you might end up playing the first level as Captain America, and then move on to Gabriel Jones, which would then follow into playing as Black Panther, and then move on to the other character of Nanali, which is pretty much exactly how it was structured within Marvel's Avengers, where you could only play as one singular character with any specific story mission that did tie directly to the game's main narrative. But knowing that this game has a far smaller roster of characters is definitely going to make the story feel a lot more focused, especially with a person like Amy Hennig taking full charge of the direction for this game. And the last factor that I do want to highlight from this article is actually a very intriguing question revolving around when exactly we can see gameplay of it. So with the final question of this article, the interviewer asks Amy, can you say when we might hear about the Marvel game again? And while this answer might be an unfortunate one, Amy goes on to fully highlight we need to go dark for a bit. We wanted to just get a peek out there, put enough little clues and tantalizing tidbits in those shots to get people chattering, but we just gotta go heads down until our next reveal, which will be gameplay. So we're working hard on all that. So sadly, while we might have to wait a bit longer to see more about this game, we do have official confirmation from Amy Hennig that whenever we do see it next, it is in fact going to be full-on gameplay. Imagining all the amazing set pieces that were featured in all the Uncharted games makes me 1,000 times more excited to see exactly what could happen here for a AAA Marvel-focused game set within World War II. It seemingly has an infinite amount of possibilities. But alas, only time will tell to see exactly what this game is going to turn out to be by the time we see it in motion. And with all that said, everybody, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think of this detailed interview with Amy Hennig? And did your overall excitement level for this game stay the same or possibly increase after hearing everything that she had to say? Let me know what you think. Be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy, and for more Marvel games videos like this in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and without further ado, peace out.